Hello, everyone. It's 3 o'clock. I will get started on our question and answer session for the 2021 Cdbg request for proposals. If you cannot hear me, will you please raise your hand? All right, seeing no hands raised, I will move forward and share my screen. This is our agenda for today. First, we will go over the proposal schedule and deadlines. Then we will go over the City of Bend's policy on grants and loans. We will cover the required pieces of the proposal that we ask you to submit so that you have a firm understanding of what those requirements are. Then we will go over proposal submission instructions, the oral presentation to the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, and lastly, council and HUD approval. And then I'll let you all take a peek if you need to or have any questions regarding the contract with the city for those Cdbg funds. And then we will have 15 or 20 minutes for questions. If you have any questions along the way, I would ask that you would drop them into the Q&A. Seeing no questions at this time, I'll move forward with our proposal schedule. The funding schedule was issued, or the RFP was issued on June 11th. Today we're having our virtual question and answer session. Proposals for funding are due to City Hall or me by email at 5 p.m. on July 12th. Staff and the advisory committee will review funding proposals between July 13th and August 10th. And on August 11th, oral presentations will be before the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. If there are multiple applications, we may have to split up those presentations in August and September. However, if it's a small amount of applicants, it's possible that we could do oral presentations and funding deliberations all in one meeting on August 11th. Again, if it's necessary, we would have another AHAC meeting for deliberations or for presentations on September 8th of 2021. Then there is a public comment period for 30 days after the committee makes their funding recommendations. So those proposal awards or allocations will wait for 30 days for those public comments before they go to AHAC for a public hearing and then on to council. These recommendations would go before council October 6th, and the funding would potentially be available as early as November. So I just want to make sure everyone has that funding schedule in mind and commits no funds for what they're proposing before November of 2021. If anyone has questions regarding the funding schedule, can you put those into the question and answer or raise your hand? All right, seeing no hands raised or questions presented, I will move on to the next item on our agenda. Which is the City of Bend's policy on grants and loans. I'm going to share that policy on my screen. Because this funding is not available for public services, it cannot fund personnel or staff for public service type benefits. This is merely for projects, bricks and mortar type, either rehabilitations or pre-development construction costs or land acquisitions. Therefore, it will be in the form of a loan from the city. So the loan options are acquisition for a land trust, which is a silent loan for 20 years at 0% interest with repayment terms revisited at year 20. For any kind of acquisition, construction, rehab, clearance of land or infrastructure, it could either be a 40-year loan amortizing at 1% or a 40-year interest-only loan for the first 10 years and amortizing at 3% after those first 10 years. All shelter or homeless developments are 0% interest, and the loan payment only becomes due upon sale, refinance, no longer becoming a shelter. All loan recipients may request shorter repayment timeframes without prepayment penalty, and developments paying within 5 years may qualify for 0% interest with the approval of the Affordable Housing Committee or AHAC. In addition, the request for proposal provides terms that allow you to propose totally alternate loan terms or a grant request. If you do so, you need to emphasize why getting the funds in a loan would harm or hurt your proposal. I do see a question and answer. Shannon asked, where can we find this document? Shannon, I'm not sure which document you are referring to. I assume the grant and loan policy, but if you could just type that into the question and answer, and then I will make sure that you receive the grant and loan document. I'll be sure to send that your way. I assume I emailed that out to everyone, but I will double check those emails if I have not. Any other questions or anyone need to raise their hand regarding the loan policy? Seeing none, I'll go to the next portion of our presentation, which is the request for proposals, required proposal contents. This is the request for proposal that was issued for this community development block grant funding that is available. It is on our website at bendoregon.gov/affordable housing. If you go to the developer resources tab on the website, that's where you will find this RFP link. If you need me to email it to you, just let me know. Most of the first few pages of this document just kind of illustrates everything, the schedule, the amount of funding that is available. Currently, there's $250,000. There could potentially be another $100,000. We describe the selection process. We describe the Cdbg grant overview. particularly with regards to that anyone applying for CDBG funds has to meet a national objective. Those objectives are a benefit to low and moderate income persons, aid in the prevention or elimination of slums and blight, or meet a need having a particular urgency. Such eligible activities include acquisition of real property, construction, pre-construction costs, not any new construction, but we could rehabilitate a building, but it cannot be an entirely new building. Clearance, demolition costs, repairs to sidewalks, housing, loans for down payment assistance or those types of housing services. Rehabilitation. Specific ineligible activities. We cannot reconstruct buildings for the general conduct of government, no government expenses, no political activities, no purchase of construction equipment, no income payments, and no construction of new housing. These are the income guidelines in section 3.5 of the request for proposal. And these are the city's consolidated plan goals. So all the proposals need to fall in line with one of these goals. Again, goal number 2 is not eligible for any funding because those public service dollars have all already been allocated in our first round of funding. Section 4.3 reiterates that City of Bend policy on grants and loans. And then section 5 illustrates kind of general criteria for funding priorities and how those will be scored before the Affordable Housing Committee. 6 includes rules and requirements for grant recipients, such as record keeping, again, meeting those national objectives, and other fair housing requirements, such as fair housing and equal opportunity, handicap accessibility, employment and contracting rules, environmental reviews, flood insurance rules, lead-based paint rules, labor standards, and relocation rules. So section 7 gets into that required proposal contents. You must complete Form A, which is a form at the bottom of the request for proposals. It includes that table of contents for your proposal. You must complete Form B, which is a summary of your project. And you must provide a brief description of your project, including the need or problem your project will address, how your project will address the identified need or problem, how your project will address the identified need or problem in a way or to agree that's not already being provided by the community, your agency's plan for evaluating the progress towards addressing the identified need, and the way in which your project will have a long-term impact on the need or problem being addressed. We're going to want to see a property and project information map and kind of a work program providing detailed timeline, including anticipated start date, completion task for the project, and a list of tasks with kind of those benchmarks that you plan to have for the project. We'll need to see that project benefit. How will it meet at least the national objectives? The estimates of total persons to be served, How the project will ensure that moderate and low-income persons benefit, but do not benefit, or how to ensure that moderate income persons do not benefit to the exclusion of low-income persons, and the methods used to determine the project benefit and documentation of the sources used. We'll need your agency information, including agency background, mission, and service history, a brief description of your agency's financial stability, key personnel, and proof that the agency is a nonprofit. Finally, Section 8 requires that Form C budget, a detailed line item budget describing the total project's costs and operating income expenses, a description of the assumptions used to determine the total project cost and the operating budget, and a brief description of your agency's plan for funding the project after the first year, a statement of your agency's ability to proceed with the project without the requested Cdbg funds or with a Cdbg award less than your requested amount. For any type of housing development, we'll want to see the pro forma that is available on OHCS's website. I believe this link is outdated. It should be 2021 right here. So I can send you a new link if you plan to apply for Cdbg funding that will produce housing. And we will also need for any organizations or agencies that receive more than $750,000 in federal funding, we'll need an audit of your organization or agency that has happened within either the year you are awarded the funds or within the year prior. With regards to loan terms, you need to provide an interest rate or loan term that vary from the grant and loan policy or section 4.3 of the RFP. All proposals will have loan terms applied. But again, if you are proposing that you cannot do a loan or you need this in the form of a grant, you need to make very clear in your proposal why that is. Section 10 asks for project feasibility and readiness, a description of the agency's administrative capacity, neighborhood and community support, readiness to proceed, any land use processes that are necessary, and a description of the agency's familiarity with meeting the federal requirements. We'll also need affirmatively furthering fair housing information or an equity and inclusion policy. And any other information that you think is critical to the proposal. Before I jump into the submission instructions, does anyone have questions about the required proposal contents? All right, seeing no hands raised or questions in the Q&A, I'll move on to the submission instructions. So one emailed proposal needs to come to me. This is my email address, rbaker@bendoregon.gov. Every request for information or clarification must be submitted to myself or Lynn McConnell 12 days prior to the proposal submission deadline. That's why we have this Q&A session, so that you can get your questions answered. And we want you to be able to, really get started on the request for proposal and have like a kind of good start plenty of days before it's due. Proposals must be received no later than 5 p.m. on Monday, July 12th, 2021. And we ask that a proposal be in Adobe PDF or MS Word format. And any other questions before the 12-day cutoff can be sent to me by email, or you can phone me at 541-312-4915. So we've gone over the request for proposal. Those oral presentations are scheduled for the August Affordable Housing Advisory Committee meeting. I believe that is, just to check my calendar real quick, I know it's in the August 11th. And those meetings are from 3 to 5. Once those presentations occur before the housing or the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, and the committee makes their recommendations, there's a 30-day public comment period, and then the funding allocations will go before City Council. Once City Council approves that first meeting in October, then the amended annual action plan will go before HUD for approval, and the funds will be available in November. So I've covered our agenda. I am going to unmute all of you. Jackie, you asked if there's a page limit. There is no page limit, although please keep in mind that the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee reviews all of these proposals, and you might want to make sure that your responses are clear and concise for their benefit. It could harm you in the long run or harm others that apply if your application is a little extensive. So all of you are available to unmute yourselves and ask any questions live. But if you have no questions, then we can certainly wrap this up in a quick 30 minutes. All right, I see no other questions. I will sign off if anyone else has further. Oh, yeah, I see a thank you. You're absolutely welcome. Take care, everyone.